Hello, and welcome to Freedom with Marketing. I'm Sam, the founder of Freedom with Marketing, and welcome to the Life, Leadership and Business Skills playlist. Today, I want to talk to you about the importance of being emotionally and mentally resilient, and how focusing on being emotionally and mentally resilient is going to significantly improve your performance in all areas of your life. Let me start by sharing a story from one of my past running experiences. This one is a little bit hard to admit. It's something that does not and did not happen to me very often, but I want to share it with you today because I believe there is a very powerful lesson in it. So this happened a few years back. I wanted to run 100 kilometers on my own. I had done it previously and the previous year, and this time I wanted to do it again. So I set a date on the calendar, but this is when I'm going to go and do 100 kilometers. The day approached. I had a plan to start at 5 p.m. and run all night where it was cooler to avoid the heat of the day. Probably a mistake in hindsight because I had no experience running all through the night. Yes, I did a lot of training runs when I started at 2 a.m. and you run for a few hours, it gets light at 6. But there's a big difference between going through your entire day, starting a run later in the evening, running all through the night and then into the day the next day. I started to have problems in this run after just a few hours where my legs and muscles started to ache. I couldn't understand why. In hindsight, well, it's kind of obvious that if you're normally in bed relaxing and asleep at this time, how can you expect your body to perform physically without the proper conditioning? I couldn't take on enough calories to sustain me, but again, what a silly mistake that if you're normally asleep and your body's normally in sleep mode, how can you expect your digestive system to work? And everything spiraled out of control, especially when you're out there for hours and hours in the dark. Everything gets worse. At one point, I found myself sitting in a bus stop about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and I sat there and I knew that I had about another 6 or 7 hours to go in order to finish. And I just sat down and burst into tears. I'd had enough. I started to cry. After a few minutes of this, I got my composure and got up and started to continue. And then every step hurt. The pain radiates through your body, and you're thinking, how on earth am I going to continue with this for another 6 hours? You just have to get through it, each step, each minute, each 5-minute block, each 10-minute block, each kilometer, etc. And it was extremely hard on me mentally and emotionally just to keep going, just to finish it. And with 3 kilometers to go, I just had enough. I could have just stopped right there, but I forced myself to just continue the distance. And when I finished, there was no elation, there was no joy. I just sat down. My wife's family home, but I started and finished, and I just burst into tears again. And this was all of the emotions coming out from what I had experienced. I haven't admitted that that's happened to me before, and being in tears or on the verge of tears during a run has come close, but never to the point as it did there. And that's coming from someone that I don't express emotions very often, and it's extremely rare that I do cry or break down emotionally, and the only time when I have in the past is mostly as a result of deaths in the family and going through the grief process. So for that to happen to me was completely unexpected, but I also view it as, in hindsight, that it was a positive experience because it actually built mental resilience, it built emotional resilience. I can accept the emotions that I felt in that moment of despair, everything's going wrong, how am I going to be able to do this? And you come out the other side, you push through, it's something you think to be impossible, but you actually get through to the other end. Now, the importance of having your mental and emotional resilience would be that without it, in a situation like that, I would have quit. I would have gone home, I would have quit. I would not have continued to punish myself just in order to hit an arbitrary distance on my watch. Nobody was watching, nobody was there making me do it. I was doing it just for myself. But you just have to get through it. You have to have the capacity and the ability just to push through and get through the challenge in the present moment. And when you can build this emotional and mental resilience, one day in the future, you will find that no matter what situation or what life throws at you, what adversity you find yourself in, that you will be able to stand there and it won't bother you as much. You will be able to acknowledge what the situation is, acknowledge the emotions you're feeling, acknowledge the situation and different things that are going on, but you can keep a level head, which makes you make the right decisions moving forward. When you don't have mental and emotional resilience, things will quickly fall apart. And when things fall apart and you allow the emotions to take over, you always... Hey, when have you ever made a good decision? When you make a decision based on emotion rather than rational thinking. And that is the importance of doing it. This is especially something I found important in my business, when you're working with clients for them driving you insane, when you are not achieving the goals that you want to achieve, when you find yourself in financial situations, when the vendors and the people that are supposed to be helping you are not performing or living up to your standards. This is where your mental and emotional resilience really kicks in, which allows you to stay level-headed and make the right decision in a tough situation. I hope you found this video valuable, useful and helpful. See you in the next video.